Hi guys, welcome to today's session. We're going to be carrying on with this piece that we've been rendering, kind of pushing to quite a finely detailed finish. So we completed can't quite see it, but the left-hand arm last week, or roughly kind of blocked in the face the week before that. We're going to be working on this right-hand section, possibly down to the torso, but we might leave the torso, clothing and the hair till next week. We'll sort of see how far we get. Possible, maybe the torso actually is possible. And I might also do some corrections to the face, so it's always this kind of process of fixing things as you go and anything you spot and refining essentially. So as always, you can access the reference, the source image that I'm using via the link, or you can work on your own reference. I'm using pretty much the same sorts of brushes that we were using last week, so a selection of smaller kind of rounds. I've got kind of one larger and a couple of smaller rounds. The palette's the same, so titanium white, cadmium yellow, cadmium red, yellow ochre, burnt umber, ultramarine blue, and black. And we've been finding, as I've been working, I've been sort of kind of modifying the skin tone slightly, so going a little bit sort of cooler in places with the skin tone is probably the biggest change that we've been making. And the first thing I'm going to do is just oil in slightly. So I've got my medium, which is a mixture of linseed oil and my solvent, any kind of solvent you can use. So I'm just resaturating any of the darker sections that I'll be working over, and also creating a couch. So we talked a little bit about couching the last couple of sessions, where we want to kind of create a slightly sort of softer surface to work with. It's a bit easier to blend into a surface that has some medium over it already. So I'm going to be working across the chest, this hand. Probably start in the chest, I think, just because it's a kind of larger area to work with. So I want to mix up a pretty pale colour. Using my Cad Yellow, I'm going to be starting with just the Alizarin Crimson, see how that looks. See how that's not too bad. As I say, I'm sort of cooling down a little bit with it, so you can see that's kind of knocking back the yellowishness slightly that I originally had in the piece. I can allow some of that yellow to sort of show through as well. So it creates what's called a broken colour effect. And I've got some on YouTube actually. You can watch some tutorials on broken colour, which is always a really nice effect to go for when you're painting. So a little bit more white I'm mixing up now, just to kind of build up the very lightest tones. Just gonna swap over to a slightly different recording mode. There we go. Should give a slightly better colour reproduction for you guys. So we worked a little bit on this neck a couple of sessions ago. We're getting back up to it. We've got this sort of cool greenness just up against this cheek. I'm also going to take it as an opportunity just to reshape the chin a little bit here as well. we've got some yellows and blues in there, some sort of quite interesting little transitions going on. It's got this interesting sort of transition from the sort of warm burnt umberiness in the shadow down into this quite strong yellow, and then also a cool blue green that are all sort of mixing together in this area of the painting. So tricky little section. And then some of that also sort of feeds some of the bluishness, cool bluishness. Kind of reflects a little bit into this cheek as well, so we'll have a look at that too. So just still working on this transition out of the cheek. If you look at the original, what's sort of tricky about this and what you'll find might take a bit of time is just getting the sense that it's this this jaw is sort of distinct from the body, the torso, but it's also not super crisp against it. So Just trying to get these sort of nice subtle transitions, and really this is why it takes time to kind of go through this stage of a painting like this, is just because this subtlety is really important to the sort of success of the piece, but it does take time to kind of get in. So don't sort of be worried if things are tricky or if it takes quite a few passes over and corrections to get what you want. Particularly with these sorts of copies, you sort of expect to take a lot longer, because when you're working in your own method, obviously it's more kind of comfortable for you and more in line with how you naturally sort of work. And when you're doing a copy, you're kind of messing around with colors or sort of brushwork types of application that's different from yours because you're working from another artist. But that's why they're so useful, because it does sort of broaden your artistic horizon to work on things like this. Yes, that's a little bit better now, I think. So I'm just going to again work on reshaping, reaffirming the bottom of this jawline. Just a slightly paler, more yellow colour underneath this cooler bottom of the jaw. Yeah, so that's slightly better now. I think the things going on around that side of the face, just a little bit more complex, and it reshapes the rest of the face a bit more accurately as well. Just notice there's a sort of slight hint suggestion of the ear there, which is quite nice to get in. So I'm just going to pop that in. Quite a warm colour, that. Put it in as quite a strong sort of alizarin, a tiny bit, touch of yellow as well. On the whole, I think that the shoulder line's not working too badly now. As I say, we definitely might find ourselves kind of going back over these sorts of areas again in a sort of final pass, but I'm a lot happier with that than how it was. Drop back down into the main part of the body now. we can just do the same thing over this this right hand side. I might also do a little bit of work again sort of in the shadows and where we're sort of meeting the side of this face, because it's a good opportunity to kind of reshape the edge of the portrait where necessary. Because we're only working up to this shadow edge anyway. It's got this very warm sort of shadow on the shoulder, so we can do that with a glaze. This is quite thinly painted, just burnt umber actually. I'm just rubbing over it, and then that's going to have to transition into a much sort of cooler, grayer colour, verging on green again. So we've got this. It's got this kind of play back to much greener tones. So then we're just blending this shadow tone now into that shoulder. Sorry, not shoulder. Well, it is the shoulder, but into the half tones around the shoulder. And blending that up into the really dark tones up just there in that. Section of the shoulder, the hair just underneath the hand or next to the hand. This area here, I have to close that a little bit just to reshape it. Reshape that hand a bit. And that's a bit better, slightly wider sort of palm than I had is necessary. And also just need to adjust this arm as well a little bit. And again, we've got a lot of sort of cool blue shifts, sort of purples down this back edge. And try to patch that in, just that. Again, that broken colour. So if you look at the reference, got a lot of really interesting kind of plays between pinkish, kind of Alizarin Crimson and white mix, that sort of pinkishness. You've got yellows going on there, kind of pale white yellows as well. So a lot of stuff, interesting colours to work with. So just trying to kind of get them all patched in and then blend over. And we've got the base to work, obviously. We've got something pretty solid underneath anyway. So I'm just going to try to get everything sort of approximately in, and then we're going to blend it as much as seems necessary. Some places it stays patchier, you can see in the original, and some places it becomes more blended. So I'm now starting to kind of build some of these lighter kind of highlight tones into this arm. So most of the kind of base tones I think are blocked in and blended quite nicely. We want to give it a kind of turn the form a little bit more still. So I'm doing that by sort of painting some white in, but I don't want to paint white alone because that probably would go a little bit too low chroma and kind of dull it out a bit or make it feel too grey. So I'm using a little bit of kind of Alizarin Crimson or Cad Red just added to the white just to kind of boost its saturation. And it needs to be a sort of high tinting strength colour. If you were to try to do that without it being quite high tinting strength, it just it wouldn't work because it would just get lost and go a bit muddy. So something like yellow ochre, for instance, mixed with the white probably wouldn't be enough. Certainly, at least the way the painting is established at this stage. got this kind of yellow, couple of kind of slight yellowish reflections kind of glowing up into the skin here as well. Sort of transition them up. There's actually a slight yellowness up sort of in the hand here as well, again underneath that hair. I think a sort of glow coming down from the hair that he's picked up on. Yes, that's going pretty well. The last thing now is just trying to get a slightly kind of brighter tone, slightly higher chroma as well, so using white mixed with my cadmiums. Just into this sort of lower arm down here. That kind of really glows against the rest of this right hand arm. So this bit here, using the kind of paint, applying the paint quite thickly, and then just blending it up sort of next to these other tones. Just getting this blending into the penumbra cast over the shoulder to start working as well a bit more. Down into the torso too. So yeah, probably won't quite get down to this, just kind of touching on the top of that torso just now, but we won't make it all the way down. I'll kind of just get this transition to work. We're just kind of coming up to probably stopping, I think, for today on this section, but had a lot of success, I think, with it. And it's starting to get a bit easier now. I've kind of got a little bit of a base of these colour mixtures that I've been using each week, which hopefully you've been following. They're not super complex, but it just takes time to kind of build up just the right balance, especially when you're kind of blending cools and warm colours together, you'll end up with some pretty tricky little mixtures. But they'll become more familiar the more that you work with them. So it's just something that you sort of have to put time into. Just going a little bit lighter with these brightest parts of the bicep. A little bit into this front forearm as well. Don't want the forearm to go quite as bright as the bicep. So yeah, I think that's probably not too bad. Maybe can use some of these slightly lighter tones just in the central portion of the chest as well. Because if I blur my eyes, this ends up sort of a similar value to that arm, so I've probably gone a little bit too dark. And again, I can just sort of patch and blend it in. And that's what we're doing at this stage. These complex blendings. But we're going back over it as well that whole section next week, because we're going to have to connect it to the lower torso as well. So yeah, I think that's not too bad for that section. I'm fairly happy with it, and some of those corrections were useful as well, so when we get back and kind of rework the face, there's a bit more sort of established now and stuff working a little bit better, I think, with that portrait, which is good. So yeah, that's it for this week. We'll just be carrying on in the next session, so it's sort of slow progress, but I wanted to show the whole sort of approach to something that, you know, is going to end up this detailed as a piece that you're going to be working on. So that's it in its sort of entirety. A little bit of glare as well, but gives you an idea of how it's coming along. So it's definitely developing a lot at the moment, which is good. So yeah, that's it for this week, and I'll see you guys soon.